Hello everyone, it's Andrea. This is one of our sketchbooks. You can get it on the cdtcreatives.com right now. You can get both of these actually. This is our Days of December 2022. It's a great big book full of sketches that are 6x8. Perfect for your Days of December albums. Now we also have a second volume 2 right back here. And this one is just labeled 6x8 sketches, volume 2. So they both work for your 6x8 sketches, whether they are Days of December or not. So I have picked a sketch out of this second sketchbook here, and I am not a girl who loves the mini albums. I'm going to be honest. So I am going to take one of these sketches and I'm going to stretch it into a 12x12 double layout for you. Here are the pictures that I'm going to be using, and I believe that I'm going to be using black as my basis to my layout. These were some whimsical, fun pictures that I took last Christmas Eve, and I had put up a garland with some, really fun balloons. So I thought that these Reindeer Fun papers, just gonna lay those down like this. These are the fronts. These are the hero papers. There's lots of reindeer with lots of blue and green, but the back side is what I think is going to work beautifully with these photos, as you can see here. So I'm going to just pick up our biggest one, and you can see that the color palette is just perfect. Grab yourself some of this Reindeer Fun paper, and we're going to make ourselves a layout. We're going to begin with the right-hand page, which is going to be this page here for me. Now, you might notice that this piece labeled C goes from the top to the bottom of this page, spanning 8 inches. And they have the 3x3 photos. So I decided to make an accommodation. I don't want mine to go from top to bottom. I just wanted to create a square to put these 4 photos into. So each of these photos was 4x4. So I made my square 8 3/4 by 8 3/4, and this is the paper that I selected. Now, generally you would put down B first before you'd put down C, but I'm going to try to save some paper here instead of running across this whole expanse here. So we're just going to tuck that next to it afterwards. So let me just move this sketch out of the way. I'm going to bring in my photos. And you might notice that I've already taken the photos, and like I said, 4 inches, and I have put a little tiny border on them. I hope that you can see that up here and here most of all. It is just 1/8 of an inch that I've cut, so 4 1/8 by 4 1/8, and it gave me a 1/16 of an inch border around. I just wanted a really light black border to kind of pop this off of the paper, and it'll match our backgrounds here. The first thing that I want to do, I've put my black base page down on my Versamat, and I'm just going to see where about I want this. I think I want this at about 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 in from the top, down from the top and in from that edge right there. So I'm going to just line my T-square up here at the 1 1/4. That'll make my job a little easier. So let's go ahead and adhere this 8 3/4 inch square down to my page. Now that we've got our piece down, let's go ahead and put our photos down. So I think I want to put this photo. I'm going to space these out actually. I started putting some glue down, but I just want to make sure my spacing is okay. I'm going to give these about 1/4 inch border around the outside, and then we will just see what we come up with in the middle here. Let's take a look. I think we're going to have about 1/8 of an inch border, and I'm going to eyeball this. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch border on the outsides, and then whatever it ends up being on the inside, it will be. So let's get these adhered down. So far, so good. I like the way that's looking. Now, I've decided to cut a strip of this busy patterned paper as well. That's why I went with black. I think with so many patterns, I need a place to kind of give our eyes some place to rest. And so the black definitely tones down these busy pieces of cardstock. So I have cut this paper at 4 inches wide. I'm going to take my patterned paper, I'm going to flip it over, I'm going to put this, I'm going to overlap just a bit, and I'm just going to make a mark. So there's one. And let's do the same thing over here. We're going to just line this up with the edge of the paper, and we're going to make a mark. So now when I trim this off, I know it's going to just be able to sneak in behind here perfectly. Let's grab the paper trimmer, and I'm just going to take those lines, the little lines that I marked here, and I'm going to move this over onto our paper trimmer. So we now have our piece for the right edge, and there's my other little mark. Here's our piece for the left edge. But I think I want to put this up about 3 inches down from the top. That looks like that would be a good fit. So we're just going to give this adhesive, and I'm just going to tuck, and then we'll do the same over here. We'll come down about 3 inches from the top and tuck this in. So if you're tucking, be careful to leave yourself a little opening. I didn't do so well on the right side of the page. I must have put so much adhesive down. Okay, so we now have both of these pieces in at 3 inches from the top. They're nice and even. And so we didn't waste those 8 3/4 inches in the middle. We have extra paper that we can bring over to our left-hand page. So for now, I'm going to stop with this page. I'm going to slide this one off. I have some adhesive down on my Versamat, and I'm just going to lay this one aside, and I'm going to bring in my next base page, and I'll line up that page next to us so that this way we can continue with these strips. And now I'm cutting a piece of cardstock here. It's 7.5 inches wide by 6 inches tall. So that's my patterned cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere this photo right on top of this patterned cardstock, and I'm going to leave just shy of a 1/4 inch border all around. Again, eyeballing this, and I do have a good like 3/4 inch, almost 5/8 inch border down here, but I'm not even measuring this. I'm just making sure that this is pretty even all around, and I like the way that looks. Good, we can go with that. Now I do have to decide where I'm going to put this particular piece, and I think I'm going to keep this fairly centered. So I'm going to just begin. I'm going to adhere this down, and I'm not going to adhere the edges because I do want to be able to tuck things behind here without any problems. So I'm going to bring this down. I think we're going to go about 2 inches from the top, and I'm just going to center this from left to right. Just going to adhere that down, and I have not put adhesive around the edges so we can tuck things behind it. So if that's 2 1/4 inches in, I'm just going to cut this at the 2 1/2 and the 2 1/2, and we will sneak that behind. This is quite an easy layout to accomplish. It's just little pieces of paper. So I'm going to set that aside again. Let's adhere these down. And at this point, I'm going to remove the Versamat. Set that aside as well, because now we've got most of our measuring done, and it's just a bunch of tucking of these pieces here and there. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move these two layouts next to each other here. Okay. And I'm just going to tuck one of these pieces right there. And then I'm just going to switch these around. No need to measure. We're just going based on the height that was on our right page. We will make these pieces work for our left. So just match up the height of the 4-inch tall paper, and there you go. Less measuring, the better, right? Now I have some extra pieces here that we need to sneak in. I have cut this piece. Let's just look at my paper trimmer. I want to give you the right dimensions here. So this piece I have cut at 5 inches wide, and I have cut it at 3 inches tall. So 5 by 3 inch piece. Then I have a 1 inch tall piece that I've cut at 5.5. The sketch calls for these to be rounded. So I'm going to bring in just a paper rounder that I have in my stash. I've gone ahead and rounded the corners, the top corners and the bottom corners of this adorable Christmas tree paper. And we're just going to tuck those underneath as well now too. So let me just give this a little adhesive. And again, these pieces have been cut bigger than what the original 6x8 sketch called for, because we need to account for the fact that we're now making a 12x12 layout out of this. So I'm just going to tuck these in and put this one up here. The next thing that I did was I decided to go into my stamp sets, and this is the Greetings of the Season stamp set. Love the sayings on here, lots of sentiments, and it also comes with an optional tag set. So I have taken this largest tag and I have decided to cut it out of that Jingle Bell paper. I want to pull the red across onto this page, so that's why I did that. And while we're talking about this set, this long tag right here, I loved that tag. So I decided I needed some journaling areas down in this area according to the sketch. So I just took some white cardstock and I ran it through my die cutting machine and I cut out several of these tags, and they are the perfect width for journaling on. And then you could always embellish these with a little something special here if you wanted, maybe a piece of twine, maybe a piece of bling. But in any case, I decided, since I had this set out to use this to create those journaling areas. Just loved that extra use that you could get out of it beyond tags. So we're going to just go ahead and tuck this in as well. And this is going to go somewhere around here. If it does not tuck in because of your tape, you can always go ahead and give this a trim. Let's do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim this down just a tiny bit. Maybe we'll find a place that we can use this little red piece as well. But yeah, that fits much better, doesn't it? I like the way that that looks. Okay, so we've tucked that there. Let's go ahead and just put down our little journaling pieces since we have them. I like that we have some white here. We've got some white here. It's a good contrast with the black. It balances it out. And so far, this layout is really going well. Now, I do have this extra piece, and I'm thinking we might be able to just tuck it in somewhere else, and maybe right there. I think that might be a really cute spot for it. So let me put a little more adhesive. I'm not going to waste this piece. We've got it. We might as well use it. Let's just tuck it right up against this photo here. And it's just another way to create a little bit more interest. That is it for putting down the pieces of cardstock that match our pattern. So now it's just up to embellishing just a little bit. So here's what I have in mind. Every layout needs a little bit of bling, doesn't it? I've decided to bring in my Reindeer Fun stamp set, and this set comes with an optional coordinating die set. The dies will cut out the reindeer that you see here in the stamped images, and then the tree and the jingle bells, stuff like that. But there's also some additional pieces in this die set, and that's what I love. This will cut out the images from the paper. It fits exactly for this reindeer, for instance, but it also has presents and holly and reindeer, things that don't necessarily have a coordinating stamp, but you could cut these out as little extras. And one of those things is this string of lights right here, and that mimics this set of lights that's here on the green paper. So I decided I needed to bring my bling in there. So I have cut, using that die, I've cut 3 sets of white, and then I've cut out of my Glimmer paper, my Festive Glimmer paper, I've cut 3 pieces. So I've cut 1 out of the cherry cobbler, 1 out of the granny apple green, and then 1 out of the last green, which the name is slipping my mind at the moment, but the darker green. I've decided though I didn't want to make a set all green or all red, and I realized that right here on the paper we just have the darker green and the lighter background. But since we are putting this off onto our black part of the cardstock, I've decided to alternate the light bulbs. So I've just been busy snipping away the light bulbs and then just adhering them. And my plan is to adhere these to our layout in 3 spots. So all that I'm doing is I am just snipping 3 red, 3 light green, and 3 dark green for each strand of lights. So 1, 2, 3, because I have 3 reds there. We're going to do 3 of the light green, and then we'll do 3 of the dark green. So 1, just be careful. I'm not cutting these all out at once because you can see that they're jumping across my table and I don't want to lose any. So we are just going to go nice and slow with this. I'm going to just put down some adhesive. Less is more. This is coming out quite quick, so I'm going to just move it across all the little dots here if I can. And give them a little bit of glue. And then all that I do is I pick up. So if I'm going to start with, let's start with the green this time. I use my little wax stick. This one isn't even sharpened, but it's working. And I just pick up the pieces and place them down onto the white. Try not to stick your fingers into it like I just did. But yeah, you can just make these beautiful strands of lights simply by snipping off the pieces and then placing them. I finished putting together our strands of lights, and I'm just going to lay those down on the bottom corner here because I want to work on a title before I place these little strands. So what I've decided to do was I needed something to go down here, and I wanted it to be a couple layers. I decided to use the Christmas is Better Together sentiment as my title. So it's kind of tiny. It's not really to scale, as you'll see. So I needed to create a bigger element. I wanted to bring in something that mimicked the round balloons, the peppermint balloons. And so I thought, you know what? Let me bring in my Spotlight on Nature dies. Now, if you've not seen these, it's double set of concentric circles. So the first thing I did was I picked up this particular one and I cut out of white cardstock. And I love that it leaves this delicate little border around. And I wanted to create a red element as well. So I then went to the one that was just one bigger. And I thought that that would be the perfect fit to make a red cut out of. So I brought in my Glimmer paper. And I have that right here on my cutting mat, and I cut the fleur-de-lis design. So I knew that I could then layer up this with this, and I'd have this beautiful red and white piece. But I'm wasting all this Glimmer paper in the middle. So what I did was I picked up yet one more of my dies. I went off of this side, picked up the other fleur-de-lis because I knew that that could hide within the boundaries of this circle here that I cut out. So I needed something that would not be seen when I cut it out of the middle of that red. So I layered that die into the middle and I made the cut. And what this did was it gave me one more piece. I hope you can see it here. It's got some little pieces that I still have to like flick out. But now I have the usable piece that I can use for my title, and I still have this little piece that I can hide away in my stash to use somewhere else. And you know, it might even look cute as an element somewhere on this layout, so I'm not against maybe using that somewhere, fitting it in. But if you've not yet gotten this Spotlight on Nature concentric circle set, it's just called Spotlight on Nature dies, and these are fabulous because there are 3 different designs. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 different designs and a whole bunch of dies. I think there are 12 dies altogether. They play really nicely together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stamp with its sentiment. And I want to stamp in black ink. But before I go ahead and stain this with black ink, I'm going to bring in just some Old Pebble. It's a lighter color. And I try to just ink up my stamp in a lighter color first. It upside down. Okay, so I do that because then that ink bonds to my stamp instead of the black. So I could stamp this off, but since I'm going so light gray to a darker black, it's not a problem for me just to tap into this. And I'm going to just try to center this. We'll just stamp that. Close up these ink pads and move them out of the way. And let's see how this looks when I pick it up. There we go. I have our sentiment. And I think that by layering up these dies, it's more impactful than if it were just that little tiny stamp on a little tiny rectangle here on the layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to layer this a bit. I think some foam tape under here would work wonders. So I think that's going to be cute to have just a raised sentiment. So where should we put this? Let's just see how it looks. And I think I might have already answered my own question. I don't know if I necessarily like it over here, unless one of these would bridge the gap. No, I think that it needs to go tucked in here just a little bit, maybe like that. Yeah, I do need it down in this area. I need this to balance out the red that's here. And I feel like putting it directly under this red tag is just, it's too much red in one strip here. So I'm going to go ahead, adhere this down, and then we're going to play with the rest of these pieces and see where they all end up on the layout. And those will be our finishing touches. Now that we've got our sentiment placed, I do think I'm going to include this piece. So I'm going to just pull in my paper trimmer. So I have my paper trimmer. I'm just going to place this piece down into the bottom, and I'm going to give that, get that scoring blade out of the way. Just going to slice up between the middle here. It's okay if it's not 100%, but I did decide to slice between the little fleur-de-lis pieces. And let's see if we can tuck these in. I think that they're just a fun, whimsical little design element here. So we have one here. I think maybe right in this area would be another great place for one. And that leaves us one more. Let's see how that looks up here. That's kind of fun. I like that because we have a visual triangle then of the red that kind of balances it out. So let's go ahead and adhere these down. And now we just have our little tiny garlands here. And where will those look good? That's what we need to ask ourselves. So does it look good with something like this, a little bit of a crisscross? This one looks kind of cute down here. This one we're going to commit to. I'm just going to put this one down. So I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid adhesive, and I'm just going to try to go very lightly right along the string. Don't really need to worry about the light bulb so much. Go ahead and hold that by the light bulb. We'll just tuck that right there. Cute. And this last one I think would go really, really well right up here. At this point, I've glued down all 3 of my garlands that I've made out of the dies from the Reindeer Fun set. And I've also made a bow out of some ribbon for my stash. This was Walmart brand ribbon from last year's Christmas department, and I had some left over, so I thought that would make a cute little bow. Now, for a finishing touch, I want to bring in some peppermint embellishments, and these are real red and white adhesive backed peppermints. They are brand new. They've been out of stock, and it's my understanding that they are coming in the week of October 14th. So they should be here this week, and you might want to grab yourself some. I love them because they are a true real red. They are not orangey at all, and they are going to match this layout just beautifully. They have 3 different sizes in the packet looks. I'm going to make 3 clusters of 3, and I'm going to use the different sizes. So I think that I'm going to put my clusters where our red doily cuts are, the round ones. And I think that'll be fun. So everything's always going to be in a triangle for me. And so let's go ahead and just see how this looks. If we do one here, I'll grab a medium, and let's grab a small one. Cute, right? Oh, these are so adorable. Oh, so sweet, aren't they? They are just so cute, and you get a whole bunch of these. Can't really see how many. Not sure how many, but you do. You get a ton of these. So these would be great for cards too. Be on the lookout for those when they come back in. So I am really happy with how this layout turned out. Using that 6x8 sketch from our creative design team book. I want to thank you for stopping by my channel. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of my upcoming projects that I have to offer. And thanks for watching. Have a creative day.